I am on. Now, let's see if I can work this like that. Good morning. We are low in numbers today, but that's perfectly all right. That means that we can just be more personal and intimate. How are all of you? Good? Barbara's still in lab. She's the only one available. Doing better, but it's slow. Very slow. Bell. Okay. You know, is representative of his lack of coordination and balance and strength. She was able to get him up, but with some difficulty. But he didn't break anything, thankfully. Come in here.
That's the way you grade all the tardy people.
How y'all doing? Doing good. We're going to be looking at, if you'll turn to Luke 18. And we'll be looking at verses 9 through 14. Luke 18, 9 through 14. But while you're doing that, anything happened this past week for which you are thankful?
I was married for 35 years today.
Well, congratulations. 35 years. That's wonderful, I guess. It is, isn't it? In 10 days, we will be celebrating a wedding anniversary, and it's almost double yours. Barbara and I will be married 60 years on the 20th of December. 60 years. She was 12 when I married her, and I was 14. Not quite. Boy, the years sure get by on you. Time does fly. So, anything else? William? 35 years. Congratulations. Missy, that's great.
Very blessed.
Definitely so.
We can go to the grandson's basketball games. That's all we do. Basketball games.
Betty, you go to basketball games? That you're thankful that you can go to those, huh? Yeah.
Her and Gavin both, so
Yeah.
we have to split up Tuesday. 'Cause they
One go one way and one go another way?
This is the first year that both played basketball. Gavin was always just soccer. He hit a growth spurt. He happened to he was going to spend the night with a friend. And he had to go to the school first because the friend had basketball practice, basketball tryouts. And so he was just sitting in the bleachers where they got towards the end. They were having scrimmage and they were one player short. So they asked Gavin if he'd come and join them. Of course, he was one of the tallest ones out there.
Yeah. He is growing.
Now he plays basketball too. He goes to Berean.
Yeah, I know Berean. In fact, yes. This is your grandson that was involved in the motorcycle accident. Yeah, that was tragic. And the young woman that was with him was fatally taken. Well, it's good to hear that he's at least improving bit by bit. Anything else? Anything that you're thankful for? Anything that happened this past week for which you are grateful and thankful. Well, let's have a prayer together. Holy Father, we do thank you for this very special day that we can come together as your children and to reflect on the events in our lives and of reasons why we should be thankful. We're thankful for William and Missy and their life together and 35 years of marriage. And we pray that there will be 35 more, that they would remain in good health and strength and in service, not only to one another, but to you and to the kingdom. I do thank you for the improvement that Ollie's relative, her grandson, has experienced, and that he will continue to recover and to have a greater fullness of life than what has transpired in the past. Thank you for Mike and Betty's family and for their children, their grandchildren, and for the growth and development, the activities in these young people's lives, that they can continue in the direction that they're going, that is good and positive, and be strong servants in your kingdom. I pray that for all of us, that we would be able to have a measure of health that allows us to be productive servants of yours. We beg your forgiveness when we fail in things that have been done that should not have been done, of things said that should not have been said, of thoughts that have been contemplated that were impure or wrong or selfish. That we can strive to be better tomorrow than we have been today, if by grace you give us tomorrow. We do thank you for the grace that you have shown us and that has been demonstrated in the gift of Jesus our Lord. That you separated yourself from that high, lofty realm and came to this earth in the form of a son and of a sacrifice that was made, done in such a way that we can comprehend and understand the significance of it. Because of our own physical mortality and innate limitations in the mental realm, we do see and understand what it means to be a father and a son and to be a family. And we can draw closer to you through that understanding, through that recognition. Bless us this day as we come together and worship. Okay, I need two readers. We are in Luke, the 18th chapter. We're going to look at verses 9 through 14, and preferably to have two different readings. As you know, this is what we've been doing at each one of these studies. And today we're wanting to focus on the thought of humility, what it means to be humble. What does it mean to be humble? Need a reader? Okay. William?
ESV.
That'll be good. His ESV, English Standard? Yeah, okay.
He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and treated others with contempt. Two men went up into the temple to pray, one a Pharisee, the other a tax collector. The Pharisee, standing by himself, prayed thus: God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week, I give tithes of all that I get. But the tax collector, standing far off, would not even lift up his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will be exalted.
Who has a different translation, different from the ESV? Anybody?
Got the New King James.
Okay, why don't you read that, Mike?
Also, he spoke this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. Two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. The tax collector, standing afar off, would not so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted.
Two very obvious extremes that exist here of a religious leader in the community, the Pharisee. I think most of us recognize that there were two prominent religious groups under Judaism, and those were the Sadducees and the Pharisees. And we're reading about this Pharisee who, is he demonstrating humility? What do you think? Arrogance. Okay, so how would we define humble? What does it mean to be humble without the negative? And without the negative means that it is not, that we don't want that. What does it mean to be humble? What is being humble?
To consider yourself lower than others.
Okay. What is a word that we attach with low? Less than or lower? Esteem?
Yeah.
Self-esteem. That this person who is really a villain in the community does not esteem himself. It is the Pharisee that is doing that. We have this great contrast that is given. One of very high self-esteem and one of very low self-esteem. Significant difference. I mean, these are 180 degrees in opposite directions.
The definition says having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance.
Okay? A low or modest estimate of one's own importance. I like that.
I'm not so sure that I think it's showing or having the ability to show less importance. I think of someone who's humble as a person who sets the right example, sets a high standard, does the right thing without drawing attention to themselves.
Okay, so they are not esteeming themselves and pushing themselves up, which is just the opposite of what we're seeing the Pharisee do.
Exactly.
What is it? Silence speaks volumes.
Yeah, doesn't it? Uh-huh. Definitely does. Any other thoughts with regards to the difference in these two characters that are presented here?
We do things in the background, good things. We don't want all of the time, do something when other people can see it, give us the praise.
Yeah,
If it needs to be done, we do it and we don't.
okay. Yeah. That is a humble attitude, isn't it? When you can do something, you feel comfortable about what you're doing. You're not trying to draw attention to yourself and recognize your own frailties and limitations. Boy, these are two totally opposite extremes here. What would we call the Pharisee in the terminologies that are used today? What's a word that might be used to describe the Pharisee? Arrogant? Maybe a clinical term? What would a clinical term be that we could use here to describe this individual? the Pharisee. Is that confusing? What is a psychological evaluation that might be made with regards to this Pharisee, religious leader? What would you call him?
Or narcissist.
Huh? What?
Narcissist.
Uh-huh. I think we're looking at a narcissist. Very much so.
I think Jesus would call him a water vapor.
That Jesus what?
Would call him a water vapor.
A water vapor?
Yeah, remember he called the Pharisees?
Yeah.
He called, you are water vapors? Didn't he call them that?
I don't recall that.
Or he called
Uh,
it something.
My recall isn't real good, but I know that, let's see, who was said that our life is but a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away? Was that James? A narcissist. Let's talk about narcissism, because I think that this is a key thing here that we can look at as we're trying to evaluate, looking at the very opposite of what this lesson is all about, which is, can we identify that and go forward from it? What is these verses here? The 18th chapter of Luke, verses 9 through 14, are about what? What is the key word? And in reference to us as Christians and talking about attitudes, what is this about? Huh?
Humility.
Absolutely. Humility. It's about humility. That the followers of Christ are not pompous, they are not arrogant, they are certainly not narcissistic. It is not about I or me, the I, the id, the ego in Greek for I. It's not about that. What are some characteristics of narcissism? Very visible things that we can see, and it has been studied and researched. And I don't know that it's listed in the way that I list them. I look at 4 specific things that are contributing factors toward narcissism. And I think the Pharisee is a narcissist. I think he's a pompous, arrogant, it's all about me. Look at me and how wonderful I am, and I'm able to do this and do that. And 4 things. Let me draw your attention. In our society, there are 4 basic characteristics that are identifiable with narcissism. Good looks. A narcissist will take their phone and they will continually do what?
Selfies and post pictures.
That's exactly right. They will continually do selfies and are all the time posting pictures of themselves. Now, I'm not pointing.
I don't even have any, so
35 years now, remember.
you can't believe anything you say.
Looks is a key component in our society to success. If you've got good looks, doesn't make a difference whether it's male or female. If you've got good looks, that is one of the components that we see wrapped up in this word narcissism. They are so focused on themselves. Okay. Money. People with money think in a very narcissistic way because money represents, for them, power and control. Good looks, money. The third one, intellect. Very intelligent, highly intelligent people get wrapped up in their intellect. Not all of them. There's some that are just as humble and wonderful as can be. But highly intelligent people will look down on other people and in a very denigrating way. Okay, so we've got looks, we've got money, we've got an intellect. Here's the fourth one. Talent. Highly talented people. We're talking about musicians, performing artists. What's a very obvious one in our society? Athleticism. Athletes are very self-focused. And I'm speaking in generalities here. These are the four major contributing factors to what we see as being directional toward narcissism. You're a real good-looking person, you're a very athletic person, you're a very intellectual person, and you got a lot of money. You're born with what in your mouth? The silver spoon. I don't know why it was silver instead of gold. So when we look at the Pharisee, we're seeing somebody that is very self-centered. What was it about him that would fall into which one of these four categories? Was he wealthy? What do you think?
Possibly.
Very possibly. Very likely that there was extreme wealth. This was a ruling class of people. They did not have a political system like we do. But boy, they had two parties that were continually at each other's throats for power. And power oftentimes is translated into money. Who's in power, who is in control, usually they will have a lot of money. So we're looking at him from that standpoint. Being in a position of power. So let's leave the narcissist here for a moment and go over here to this other fellow who is what is he? What's his occupation? Yeah, he's a tax collector. How were tax collectors viewed in that day and time? In a favorable way? Scum of the earth. How are revenue agents viewed in this day and time? About the same. About the same. Not much difference. We don't like taxes. And we don't like those that call us into the office and we've got to sit down and give an account for this, that, or the other on a very limited income. Matthew was. Matthew was a tax collector.
Tax collectors were not very well liked.
Oh, they weren't. In that day and time, they were not liked. How about today? We just love them to death today, don't we?
But they were,
Same.
tax collectors back then were very wealthy.
Why do you suppose that was the case, Johnny?
I don't know.
How did they get wealth?
They worked for the government.
Part of, they were paid kind of on piecework, weren't they? Didn't they get a certain amount of what they?
Yeah, they got a percentage. Now, who was the government? What government were they working for? The Romans. Yeah. And that was one of the ways that Rome sustained its power was through taxes.
Was Herod around during that time?
Was who?
King Herod, was he around?
Oh yeah, he was. Certainly in that first century, he definitely was. Even Herod the Great goes back before the birth of Christ. So we're looking here at two contrasts. But let's go back over here to this. How would you describe this tax collector?
This lady was humble.
Okay, so he was humble. It was
He needed forgiveness.
yeah. Was he self-deprecating? Does that, you understand what I'm saying? Deprecation, not defecation.
Yeah.
Deprecation. There's a big difference.
Yeah, to the point of him beating his chest, you know.
I think the key phrase with him was that he wouldn't even look up.
Yeah, he didn't look up.
It doesn't say that the tax collector did, but it sort of infers that
Wha-
in the fact that the tax collector didn't.
Yeah. What is insightful about him not looking up? What does that tell us about the posture or position of prayers?
He was humbling himself before God.
Okay, he was, so that's why I said, is he self-deprecating? That he's looking down? Is it, oh, how horrible and wretched I am? It could have been some of that. Are we that way? Do we tend to be putting down ourselves and not fulfilling or living up to what God's expectation is for us? Sometimes we do. Sometimes we do it to the extent that in the family, we don't see that we've got the talents and the abilities to do things, and we put ourselves down and limit our productivity in the kingdom of God. He's limiting his productivity here, I think. It is recognizing there is a degree of self-deprecation that is going on by the tax collector. He certainly was vilified in the community. I don't think that there was anything dishonorable about the job. I think it could be a dishonorable work that the person that has the job can exercise on the public, to the degree that he's, in order to realize profit for himself and money for himself, he's charging them more than what he's supposed to. And I think he recognizes it, that he is a low-down, dirty rascal, the scum of the earth. That's how he's viewing himself. And he's looking down. He does not even have enough esteem or wherewithal in himself to look up and pray to God. There is an interesting observation that he makes here. In verse 13, verse 13, he was unwilling. That's an interesting word there. He could not bring himself to even look up. He is so tormented and filled with anguish and remorse about his lifestyle that he said, sinner, present active, now I am an ongoing, I have been and I am now an ongoing a sinner. But he is so specific that he moves it beyond the general term of a, because a sinner. The sinner. The sinner. That's me. He is focusing on himself and his own shortcomings. There's a great lesson right there.
King James Version does say a sinner.
Okay?
I'm curious at that, though, as to, was he referring to himself as a sinner because he was a tax collector?
What do you think?
I don't think he was. I think that may have been the inference that a lot of the people around him may have thought.
Okay.
I think it's like us today. You know, no matter how we live our lives, no matter how righteous, correct, godly we try to be, we are always a sinner. I think that's what he was doing. He was bowing to God and asking for mercy because he was not completing his role as he felt God would want him to. He fell short of that. He was a sinner. I think the tax collector may have added to that,
Okay? That he was a sinner.
was a sinner, and I think he understood that everyone was.
The participle that is used there is he's looking directly at himself and not in a general sense as a sinner, which we all are. Specifically, the sinner. I am the sinner. Very specific. Really doesn't make a whole lot of difference other than with this individual and the comparison that is made between where he is as a tax collector and this other fellow over here, who is a religious leader and who is looking up to God, and we have the contrast of he's looking up and the tax collector is looking down. The Pharisee is not showing any signs of humility whatsoever. There is no contriteness to him. There is arrogance, puffed up, pompous. It's all about me.
He's there to save the church.
Huh?
Like he's the very reason the church is there. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
here now,
Yeah.
everything can go on.
So as we look at these two, we can see such diametrically opposed personalities. One who is all the way up here and the other one who is all the way down there. Two great extremes that are given that really do reflect life. But these extremes maybe help us to see where we are in between those extremes. Where are we? Where are you? Would you put yourself over here in the camp of the Pharisee, or you put yourself over here in the camp of the tax collector? We would like to think neither one. We're somewhere in the middle. We recognize our own frailties, but we're not so pompous that we're standing before God and acting like we've got it all together. We don't. But not so deprecating over here is the tax collector, that we beating ourselves up, and there's a problem there. And the problem is that when you play down your value and worth, what you're doing is recognizing that the power that God has and His grace and mercy is limited, and it's not.
You know, Pat, I struggle with that middle ground a little bit. You know, that's somewhere between, there's a song, one of the lyrics is, I'm somewhere between holy water and Jim Beam.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, I know,
You know, he says, look, one, I spew you out of my mouth.
Uh-huh.
I spew you out of my mouth. I don't think I ever feel good enough to do anything, kind of, this is me personally, you know, I don't feel like I ever get to the point where I'm what I'm supposed to be. I always feel like I'm short.
Do you compare yourself with others? Within the body, within the family? Do you compare yourself with what you see someone else doing or what they're...
I think absolutely.
Okay.
Everybody does
I think we do.
something.
Yeah.
I've got great respect for you and what you're able to do with these guys that lead
Mhm.
singing or prayers or wait on the table or whatever, you know, and lead have classes, you know,
Mhm.
and so you hear that from your youth, that you can do these things, and I've always told them I'll drive the bus, I'll cut the grass, I'll do, there's something
Mhm.
for me to do.
Absolutely.
But it ain't
Yeah.
that, you know,
Mhm.
doesn't mean I don't want to, or doesn't mean I don't feel I'm not doing it, you know? So that's not to lift you up or hold me down, I just recognize that as, I'm just not you.
Mhm. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And that's, I think, a fair way for us all to look at it and to see that the talents that you have, I may not have, or I may have a talent that you don't have. And so what we can do is recognize that where one has this strength and the other one does not, then they are able to pull together, recognizing that here's a person's got something that I don't have and I can be made stronger because of what he's got. And then he can be made stronger because of what I've got. We don't all have the same thing. You know, Romans and Corinthians, those two letters are very specific about the talents that have been given.
I don't think that's necessarily, I think it's a great example, this
Mm-hmm.
You know, that doesn't necessarily mean, see, at this point, you know, he may have been having life problems that morning.
Mhm.
You know, he went in, he may have been having he is a tax collector by label, that's his profession, but he could have went in there with any number of problems that had him on his knees.
Could have been, could have been. Mhm.
Um,
We don't know. It doesn't say specifically, does it?
But maybe the Pharisee just at a glance recognized him for who he thought he was.
Mhm.
You know, so I think for the most part, when you walk outside, a lot of people looking in just look at all of us as sinners or hypocrites or whatever. That's exactly what I am.
Is the
I
ta-
had that covered, I wouldn't need to be in here.
is the tax collector looking over at the Pharisee and putting himself down because he's not like the Pharisee and wishing that he could be like the Pharisee? What do you think?
I think on that day, he was just somebody that was in a place that needed forgiveness.
So contrite of heart? And then we have the other extreme of the Pharisee. Is he looking at the tax collector?
Very possible, right? That's.
Oh, he is.
I think he is one of them.
He is. But look at this again. I don't see the tax collector looking at the Pharisee. Now, maybe I'm misreading it. Two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other tax collector. The Pharisee stood and was praying to himself, God, I thank you that I'm not like other people, swindlers, unjust, adulterers, and even like this tax collector, that low-life scum that's over here in the temple.
And pointed it out.
How dare he even come into your presence as a low-life scumbag tax collector? So we have two huge extremes. Now, the benefit to us in these is that we are able to see the extremes and to notice that God does not intend that we be at those extremes, but to recognize the humility that we should have and to be servants in the kingdom with whatever talents we have been given. Don't be egotistical. Don't be a narcissist. Don't be a poor, pitiful, wretched, self-deprecating individual like this tax collector. But which one would you have greater association with of these two? Which one can you relate to better? Does that make any sense, the question I'm asking? Well, time's about up. That you would be with the tax collector? Why? Anybody else? Anybody associate with a tax collector? Nobody?
I do more so than the Pharisee.
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
Well, he was humbling himself.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I would hope I do.
That's what this is about.
That's, yeah.
And this is the lesson that we draw from this. And what it says here. In Luke, the 18th chapter, verses 9 through 14, disciples humble themselves before God. And that's what we're called on to do, to be humble in the presence of God. Certainly so. Missy.
And that's one thing, that I guess I may worry about it too much, I don't know, but, like when I'm trying to tell somebody a story.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the one specific thing that occurs the most often, is like if I'm trying to just even tell my own mom something, but it stemmed from the devotional that I had that morning.
Uh-huh.
So when I'll have the conversation, I'll say, in my devotional this morning, such and such. And I worry about, is that, if I'm, making it known I had a devotion.
Okay.
That's a way to say that. But that's probably the most often time
Mhm.
I'll wonder that, like, should I just said that without saying in my devotional this morning?
Like there was an ulterior motive behind your thought, I'm going to share this and
Yeah,
feel
so-
better about yourself?
So, yeah, I think I worry, to the, I don't know the extreme, but like, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, or,
Yeah, I do. In that we are recognizing what we would like to be, and we want to be something better, but we're also wanting others to see it in us and to recognize that we have a degree of spirituality or righteousness about us. And we want that, but we're wanting others to see it also. And we don't have to put up a sign to say, you know, I am this. We demonstrate it by the way that we live. It becomes a message that is so much louder than what comes out of our mouth. Humility. Being humble. That we don't need to put ourselves on a pedestal. Why?
Because you get our reward here.
We're already on a pedestal. You don't need to put yourself on a pedestal. God's already put you there. And you are so special in His sight that you don't need to look down and be deprecating towards yourself, and I can't do this and I can't do that. You can do something there. God has given you a talent. He wants you to be humble in His service and not draw attention to yourself. He's already done that. That's what He did. And He made us special in His sight, uniquely special and wonderful in His sight. But He does want us to be humble. He does want us to be humble. Not like the Pharisee, but more like the tax collector.
Next few verses after this is where he talks about, be like little children.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think of them as humble, I think of them more as innocence.
Pure.
But
Mhm.
there's, one is not unlike the other.
Yeah. Great lesson in the lack of there being or there not being a need for children to be sprinkled or baptized or, for this is what the kingdom of heaven is already like little children. Okay, time is up. Appreciate your thoughts. I think there is a greater likelihood for us as humble people to identify with the needs that other people have, instead of being like the Pharisee who was so caught up in himself that he could not see the needs that other people have. And that's why the message here is about Christians, the children of God, being humble people. Thank you for your thoughts, contribution. So good to see all of you. 35 years. Congratulations. Y'all come on in. Hi, Arch. Thank you.